can't think of a better way to start off my new podcast series than to start on the topic of imposter syndrome. I know I've struggled with it my entire life, and I would be willing to bet you have too. As a matter of fact, I've yet to meet a human who hasn't. Hey, my name is Sarah Batali, and I am an autodidactual serial entrepreneur with a penchant for the occult. Okay, but what does that sentence even mean? It simply means I learn on my own, rely on myself for money, and enjoy all the mysteries of the universe. I'm just a regular girl who spent way too much time at the library. As a matter of fact, that's where I learned all the things I needed to know to raise myself from poverty. Starting with my very first business at the age of 12, I have since then owned and operated 6 more. I negotiated an intellectual property sale, facilitated the passing of a Texas state House bill, lived overseas, dealt with addiction, and made over 6 figures, all while navigating parenthood, marriage, and a whirlwind of life. I believe that knowledge is power, and I know that as a teen mom, a high school dropout, a child of addiction, abuse, and poverty, the only thing that separated me from impending failure was my love of knowledge. So come along with me as we explore all the things. Welcome to the Serendipity Podcast. Imposter syndrome. What is it? How does it affect us? And how do we beat it? Imposter syndrome is this great little buzzword that's been circulating around. When I first heard it, I was like, what the hell is imposter syndrome? To me, it sounded like some terrible autoimmune disease, something that takes hold of your body and overpowers you. I had these terrible mental images of zombie people, all pale and sweaty in 3-piece suits, involuntarily jerking their arms and legs around. Well, it's not quite that dramatic, but in my honest opinion, it's almost as scary. Imposter syndrome is basically just self-doubt on a big enough scale to cut you down and ruin all of your hopes and dreams. And I mean that. Have you ever wanted something so bad and then you, and I'm using some very heavy air quotes here, realized that you have no idea what you're doing, you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, and who the hell do you think you are? Slow down there, hotshot. You're getting a little too big for your britches. It is literally the killer of all creation, the death of motivation, and the murderer of love. Okay, maybe not the murderer of love, but it's still some very serious stuff. Once this infiltrates and takes over, you'll suffer from anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, which, as we all know, low self-esteem can cause anxiety and depression. So if you aren't practicing self-realization, you can easily fall right into this nice little vortex of doom. Don't panic. I know I said it's serious, and I honestly believe it is. But the truth be told, we will all suffer from this to some extent. If you take a hard look at the last few unfinished projects you have, you'll most likely see a pattern of imposter syndrome. I know that I personally hemmed and hawed about this very podcast for about 6 months before taking the plunge and actually getting to work. I mean, who am I kidding, right? I don't have the credentials to be taken seriously, and I certainly don't have the time to create an entire broadcast. Or at least, that's what the saboteur in the back of my mind kept telling me. So with all of that being said, let's dig into how to recognize imposter syndrome when it's happening to you and what you can do to defeat it. The main problem with imposter syndrome is that it runs off the fact that humans are always running on the subconscious mind. Well, maybe not always, but most of the time. I mean, this is a good thing. Imagine how difficult it would be to do a simple chore like, I don't know, breathing if you weren't using your subconscious mind. We're running on the background most of the time. We rarely stop and think about why we do what we do, or how the things we tell ourselves affect our behavior. Hell, some of us don't even recognize that we have a script, just a running string of thoughts in the back of our head. How many of you guys actually make the conscious effort to recognize those thoughts? How many of you are having theoretical arguments? You know, the thing you should have said to that one guy like 7 years ago? How many of you are counting invisible items or singing little songs or playing little mental mind games throughout the day? How many of you are never really listening to the script that's running in the background? I will tell you how many. 100% of us. Every single human on this planet, even the most self-actualized person, cannot keep tabs on every single thought that goes on inside their head. Think of the amount of neurons that fire off in a single minute. Okay, now think of that in a day. Right, exactly. Now count those. You can't. And that is why imposter syndrome is so sneaky. It gets you when your back is turned. So how do we recognize when it's happening? I want to talk about the 3 main ways that imposter syndrome presents itself and the clues that will help you identify it when it's happening so we can stop it and hopefully defeat it. Clue number 1, be in your body. Is your tummy queasy? Are your hands sweaty? Is your heart beating too fast? Are your armpits leaking all gross down your body? Good, that is a clue. Our brain loves to sabotage us. It doesn't care if you close the deal or you bomb your presentation. It only cares if you survive. And it will do anything to keep you from dying. Obviously, you're not going to die if you don't do the thing you need to do. Hopefully, isn't life, right? However, your brain will tell you that by doing anything different, you're going to die. Your brain's logic is simple and, of course, very logical. You've done the same thing over and over, and you haven't died. Therefore, anything new could potentially kill you. Your brain is telling you, do not deviate from the script. Do not die. So now, when you're ready to do that thing, your brain's going to send all these nice little signals to your body to try to get you to stop. It makes you feel as uncomfortable as possible to make you stop disobeying the background noise. Clue number 2, you're a gutless flip-flopper. Have you started and stopped, and started and stopped, started and then stopped again on the same project? Have you become increasingly flippant in your decision-making ability around a particular subject? Bingo! That's your sneaky subconscious or your lizard brain yet again. The third way we can tell that imposter syndrome has sunk its proverbial teeth into our backsides is by simply being confused. Are you unable to remember exactly what you were going to do? Do you have brain fog? Is it hard for you to come up with an answer? Do you have analysis paralysis? Great, that's your brain again, telling you yet the same thing. Don't die. So if I can't stop you by making you think you're gonna die, I can stop you by just simply confusing you. Great, now you're stagnant and you won't die. There are 2 ways that you can defeat the beast. And the first one is as simple as being bold. Bravery is more beneficial to you than intelligence or even skill. Taking the plunge and doing something, even though you're afraid, is the very best way to deal with self-doubt. Even if you're doubting yourself the entire time you're taking action, you're still taking action. What if you fail? What if you succeed? What if? Does it really matter? Will you really die? Most likely not. And not to sound sinister, but if you do die, what changes? I've never met or even heard of someone who hasn't died. And I feel like if you're dead, you probably don't care anyway. Or at least I hope not. Being brave is just facing an unpleasant situation. So technically, every single time you scrub the toilet, you're acting in a brave manner. You have plenty of practice. Great. The best advice I ever got was, you'll never know if you don't just go. And that's entirely true in this situation. Doing is defeating. The second manner in which we combat imposter syndrome is something that I cannot even begin to explain in one nor many podcasts. It's something we should all be working on forever, an intentional, perpetual project. Metacognition, or the ability to observe and think about your own mind and the way that it works. Some call it self-growth. Some call it awareness. Awakening is a trendy little word that's been recently coined for it. But really, It's just paying attention to the program running in the background and choosing to live intentionally instead of subconsciously. Becoming aware that what you say to yourself impacts the way that you behave is going to open more doors for you than anything on this planet. Understanding that we are life and that life isn't just happening to us. Comprehending the universal truth that every man is created equal. Recognizing the power of our own potential that lives inside of every single one of us, and grasping the truth that anything that we truly want in this life is only being prevented by our own thoughts, that's the ultimate power. Don't let your lizard brain tell you anything else. Thank you guys sincerely for listening. I hope I not only entertained, I enlightened. If you like this and you want to hear more, make sure you check out my webpage where I'll publish all of my podcasts. You can find me at nichebitch.com. That's NICHEBICHE.com. Thanks again. Have a great week.